as we know, there are a lot of, myth, misperceptions about dementia. What are the common ones you have heard? Probably we start with you, Jessica, with your experience supporting people with dementia. What are some of the most common myth and misconceptions you encounter so far?
No, thank you. And Mary Beth, feel free to add in. Like, one of the most damaging myths, in my opinion, is that people with dementia cannot make decisions. That's the myth. And that is so not true. People living with dementia can give input and should have the opportunity to give input about their care plans and what
Of
supports
course.
they need.
Of course.
You know, I'll just say our partnership between Mary Beth and I, we've um, had people living with dementia informing education, informing building design, leading conversations around resource development and research. So people
Yes.
living with dementia can make decisions. Mary Beth, you want to add anything else?
Sure, I do. Thank you. Now, one of the things about decisions, however, is it can be more challenging. Um, and this is certainly the case for myself. I
Yeah.
find decisions hard to make.
Yes.
And so the trick here is really to help manipulate the situation so I can make the decisions. So maybe, for instance, instead of saying, would you like to go out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday? That's a lot of things I have to try and remember. And so
Yeah.
that would be a hard decision for me.
Yeah.
But if you said, what do you think about either going out Monday or Friday?
Friday. Mm.
Just as simple as that, all of a sudden now it's just this or that. Oh, I'd like to go out
Yes.
Monday. And by helping to enabling us, then we
Yes.
certainly can make decisions. We can make really, really hard decisions.
Yes, yes. Interesting point. So I also agree with you, Jessica, earlier that you mentioned where we as family members or caregivers, we have to give opportunity to Mary Beth or those with dementia, like how are we going to simplify things for them to help make decisions, like what you
Yeah,
mentioned, Mary Beth. We try to break down because
yeah.
that's how we unleash them, the potential for them to make decisions. And it's not like how, okay, you cannot make decisions, we make decisions for you guys. So yeah, it's really an interesting point.
It could just be as simple as, Mary Beth, there's this outfit, and here's your second choice. Which
Correct.
one would you prefer? I
Mm,
think the problem is because we believe they can no longer make decisions, we take all of that opportunity for
of
choice
course.
away. And that is so damaging
Of course.
because nobody likes to be told what to do, and we all want to
Yes.
have a choice in our lives. So that's why I feel that first myth is really one of the most damaging. I think another myth that's also very damaging is the belief that people with dementia cannot learn and grow. And that is so not
Mm,
true. There's
yes.
been so much research over the last several years around brain plasticity. And research has found that, our brains can reorganize itself and create new neural
Yes.
pathways to adapt to change. So even if there is loss, it can still be molded.
Of
We
course.
know so many colleagues who've learned a new hobby, learned
Yes.
technology. A shout out to
Read
our
books.
friends,
Yeah.
Paul Lee and
Polly,
Roger
yes.
Marple. Those two friends of ours, they would joke that they had new girlfriends, Alexa and Siri. So they're using new technology to
Yes.
help them with their day-to-day life. People living with dementia have shown to us that they can communicate in new ways. So even if the words might be lost, they're communicating through, I remember this lady I worked with at the day program. Her name was Pauline, and she would only hum. Hmm.
Mm,
But when we got to know Pauline, we could tell when she was cold by the
yes.
pitch and tone and the vibrations of her humming, that she was not, well, or she was afraid, or she was excited.
Excited.
So we need to be open to understanding that people living with
Of
dementia
course.
can learn, grow, and communicate in different ways.
Of course.
Mary Beth?
Yeah, I think the one about being creative in particular. Again, all kinds of research is done on this, and there's so many examples out there about people who never painted before, and all of a sudden they're making, Picasso-worthy paintings, like just incredibly beautiful things, art, pottery. For me, my little creative piece is that I never wrote before. I was a historian, so I would write history essays, but I made a book.
Yeah, it's
And,
amazing.
people with dementia aren't supposed to be able to do that, right?
Of course.
And lo and behold, and it's not just me that's made a book. There's a whole bunch of us that have made a
Yes.
book, and
Yes.
about different topics. And some of
Yes.
them are very educational. Others are just sharing experiences. Others are
Experience.
just
Yeah.
storytelling.
Yes.
So this whole myth about not being able to learn and grow
Of course. That's true.
out the door.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lauren, can I
Yeah,
just share 2 more myths
sure.
that
Of
are
course.
really
Of course.
damaging?
Of course.
Another one is that the belief people with dementia become like children again. I want to be very clear.
Yeah.
People living with dementia are not children. They're at a different life stage. They've gone through so much
Of course.
before they were diagnosed. So maybe there's some changes in how they interact with people, communicate, how they process information, how they tell their bodies to move and to respond, but they are not children.
Of course.
For some reason, and Al Power, Dr. Alan Power always says this, why do we hold people living with dementia to a higher standard? They're not children. Let's just say you and I have been working at our computers for so long, you studying. At some point we would want to go outside, right? That's just normal behavior.
True.
And if people who are at home for that long period and they're living with dementia, they would want to go outside and experience nature. But we would call that elopement, or they're escaping, or they're trying to get out. When they get upset over something because maybe we took choice away, or we didn't respond to their needs in the moment, they get upset, and we call that a temper tantrum, right?
Yes.
So
Yes. Of course.
these are very damaging beliefs. Mary Beth, wanted to say something?
What did I want to say? You know what? I think I find it truly offensive.
Of course.
And I'll just put a period there.
Yeah.
Mic drop moment. True. Very offensive. And then I'll just say this, Lauren, one other one that we believe is very damaging is this belief that people living with dementia are fading away. That's so not true. People living with dementia, and there's been a lot of research. For example, some research done by Georgetown University professor of psychology, Stephen Sabat. And his research really focuses on understanding the cognitive and social strengths of people living with dementia. And he found that people living with dementia, even further along in the journey, still feel concern for others. With the right stimuli and supports, they can still communicate. There's so many social media posts about people living with dementia. I just saw one on TikTok or Instagram, and it was a former opera singer, and he was doing a duet with a soprano singer. There was this video that I think went viral that was originally posted by a Spanish organization, but reposted by the Alzheimer's Research Association, of this lady, a ballerina. And when she was hearing the Swan Lake music, she was performing the dance because she was a former ballerina. Or Alive Inside, the documentary, and you have Arthur, who was listening to music and was engaged, and he was so vocal after and communicative. With the right supports and stimuli
Of
and
course.
just our engagement with them,
Of course.
you know, they can definitely engage with the
Engage with
world.
you. Of course. Of course.
For
Sorry.
me,
Mm,
the big one here for me is music. And because music plays such a part, I think, of really everyone's lives, from, you know, a baby
yes.
to you. But those memories that I have associated to particular songs really, they become more vibrant. You know, so when we're saying fading
Yeah.
away, I think
Yes.
just the opposite. I think
Yeah.
I feel more colorful. I feel more
Yes.
alive. I have these wonderful memories that make me laugh. And my partner Don will tell you that I even dance in the
Wow.
even dance, which I didn't used to do, and I'll dance anywhere now.
Yeah.
You know,
And if I
so
say, and if I
no
can
more
just
fading
say,
away.
yeah, no more fading away. And Mary Beth, like Mary Beth and many people living with dementia, we know, I think they're even more attuned to what other people are feeling and
Correct.
experiencing.
Yes.
And Mary Beth, would you also say that you're more attuned to your spiritual awareness as well?
I I definitely am more attuned to spiritual awareness and to the openness of all of my five senses.
Mm.
Yes.
So, you know, when I go out for a walk,
Yeah.
I feel the sun. I feel the wind. I smell the flowers. I
y-
think more than I ever have.
Yeah.
You know.
That's really great. But just one follow-up question. All the points you've mentioned is really interesting, you know. It's true. Um, if someone with dementia doesn't have that opportunity to engage, or probably the family members or caregivers doesn't allow or believing this myth, will the dementia gets worse, or it will move to the next level quickly? That's how it works, or what's your
I,
comment about that?
I can't say what research says about it. That's more kind of Jess's thing. Um, but I can say if I'm left in a room without any stimulation,
Yes.
then my mood will change, just like yours would,
Okay. Of course.
right? If you're not stimulated, if no one's talking with you,
Of course.
then like anyone, we will our mood will change. We will become depressed. We probably
Yes.
then will affect our eating, and then it will
Yes.
affect our
Of
mobility.
course. Yes.
And so, if there isn't engagement, then how can we not get worse?
Yes. Agree. I agree on you on that.
Yeah, there's been so much research done to to suggest that when we're not engaged with the world, or we're not engaged, or we're not connecting with other people, we'll turn inwards. And I think that's a lot of the cases when we see people living with dementia in the
Mission.
later part of the journey, because of those really strong beliefs are influencing us as care partners.
Yes.
And so we're not interacting, we're not creating the conditions, the environmental
For them.
conditions, the supports that they need to stay engaged in a meaningful way. And
Of course.
so, great point, Lauren. I think that for many family care partners, and I would even say healthcare professionals, we don't
No.
know how best to engage with
Of
people
course.
living with dementia. And so there's a ton of wonderful resources that I want to just make a shout out to, that family care partners can access through the Research Institute for Aging. They're called Bias Forest Guides.
Mm-hmm.
They're guides written by people living with dementia and or family care partners, and they offer a lot of tips and strategies based off of real life experiences. There's one guide called Living and Celebrating Life Through Leisure, and it gives great examples of how we can engage in a
Engage.
meaningful way. But there's just so many other
So many.
wonderful
Of course.
bias forest guides. But great question, Maureen.